Hi, this is MC Solaris, paranormal romance author of CALYPSO'S Heart, Book One in the Orion's Order series. Welcome to part two of this amazing opportunity I have to interview the talented narrator and voice actor of CALYPSO'S Heart, Jarman Day. So, Jarman, in part one of the interview, we had a chance to learn a bit more about you and your background. And in part two, I'd love to get a chance to know more about how you narrate audiobooks.
Perfect.
So, to kick this off, I am curious, do you have a ritual or a routine before you even start recording? Like, do you do vocal cord warm-ups? Do you drink some tea or maybe burn some sage and do like a cleansing ritual? Or
Oh
let
my
me know
God,
what you
no
do.
offense to anyone who uses sage, because I'm sympathetic to any kind of spiritual beliefs anyone might have. But man, that smell, I had a roommate in college who would just sage everything every day, and it just would drive me nuts. But anyways, so no, I don't sage. But
So no on the stage.
everything else is
Got
pretty
it.
darn close.
Got it.
I love some tea with honey. And then also I do a silly vocal warm-up that I've done since high school. They taught it to us in high school. It makes absolutely no sense, but it's these words that are a little difficult to say together, and you're supposed to just over-enunciate them really quickly. It's just 1 hen, 2 ducks, 3 squawking geese, 4 limerick oysters, 5 corpulent porpoises, 6 pairs of Don Alverzo's tweezers, 7,000 Macedonians in full battle array, 8 brass monkeys from the ancient sacred crypts of Egypt, 9 apathetic, sympathetic, diabetic old men on roller skates with a marked propensity toward procrastination and sloth. That's it. But I actually do it very slowly and over-enunciate things to get your mouth moving and warmed up, and then you can jump right in the booth at that point and be ready to say anything, mostly. Yeah.
And growl. Growl into the mic.
And growl into the mic, yes.
Well, gee, say that 5 times fast.
It helps. It helps.
And apparently you do.
And also a big thing people don't think about with recording booths, because I have a whisper room recording booth, they get very warm because you can't really have like a big fan blowing in there because it'll be on the recording. So I usually open the door first while I'm doing the vocal warm up, making some tea or whatever, and let the air conditioner kind of flow into the booth before I start. Because you can get about a half an hour in, and I have a little thermometer in there, and it gets up to about 83 degrees. Then you gotta take a break for a while.
Yes. Okay. So I actually, funny story, I don't have, and by the way, I want to know what this whisper sync thing is
Whisper
in a
room,
second.
yeah.
Whisper room. Whisper sync. Wait, no, that's like totally the audiobook ebook
Yes.
situation. No, I'm not an author or a reader. What was that? Oh yeah. So I'm in my room. I only have one room in my apartment, and I kind of did something similar. I was right before this interview. I had my fan going full blast in the window because, again, I can only have so much time in here before I start like sweating and gets like really hot.
Oh yeah,
So
you know how
I
it
can
feels.
empathize with you. Yes. Okay. So what is this whisper room?
That's what the big upgrade. I went from starting my first books, I was in my closet, just the clothes being the only sound dampening thing I had, to now I have a whisper room, which is a 3x5, 3 feet by 5 feet sound booth. So inside there, I have all my soundproofing in there, and it's got my microphone and a couple monitors and a wireless keyboard and mouse, and I can do pretty much everything from in there.
Okay. And are you in there right now?
No,
we like set up the 30-minute timer? Like we have 30 minutes?
Thankfully, I am in my nice studio room outside of the booth and at my podcasting mic, so it's nice and comfortable and cool in here. So it's good. We're good to go.
So we're not down to the wire. You're not like watching your clock every 5 seconds. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. And so before you actually get into this, and by the way, 3x5, like that just seems a little claustrophobic. No?
It's not too bad, actually. If you saw it, you'd be like, okay, that's not bad. They do sell a 3x3, I think, which is basically like,
oh boy.
I couldn't go that small. I was just that would be claustrophobic.
Yes, that is pushing it, unless you're like in character of like they're in like a coffin or something, right?
That's true, I guess. A thriller book you'd have to be reading.
Don't worry, that does not happen in my book.
Okay.
So you're good. Okay, yeah. So before you actually get into your coffin, aka whatever it's called, the whisper room.
That sounds kind of sexy by itself, isn't it?
What?
The whisper room sounds kind of sexy. But no.
Oh, the whisper room. I was like, the coffin room does not sound sexy,
No.
Jarman.
Well, I think I call it that just because, I don't know, it's quiet as a whisper in there. Something like that. That's just the branding.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's a brand. Okay.
Yeah, it's a brand name of the sound booth, basically.
Okay. And no one cares about this. So I better get off my whisper horse over here and get on with the interview. So before you actually get inside this whisper room, said in a sexy voice,
Mhm.
is there anything that you do to prepare? Like, do you read the book ahead of time and take notes, or do you just kind of walk into the studio, say a prayer, and wing it? Or
God, that'd be
what's going
terrible.
on?
Yeah. So what I do normally is make a first read through of the book. I'm taking notes throughout. If I have any questions for the author, like a lot of times in these urban fantasy kind of books and paranormal books, there can be words that the author just made up. So you have to, there's no real way to pronounce them besides how the author wants you to pronounce them, or character names, and also like if it's not quite clear from the context how the character might sound. It's real important to do this kind of work because I've heard horror stories of narrators getting to the end of the book and it says he went back home to Britain, and they didn't know the character was British the entire book. So it's like, it's kind of important to find that out.
Oh boy.
Or if something has a really low voice, they might say that towards the middle of the book or something. And so you got to prepare for those kind of things and do your research. Try to look up all the words you can that are real words, and don't ask the author for that, but do it yourself. It's prep work. And a lot of times I'll make recordings of the character at the very beginning of the book so I can use it as a reference so that the character sounds the same from chapter 1 to chapter 50 in your case.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Chapter 1000.
Exactly.
10 years later in the timeline.
And it's also good for like a lot of books that are in series. You want to, have that recording so that they sound the same in book 10 as they do in book 1, so it's important as well.
Okay, that's interesting. And I was actually going to ask you about this specific voice. Like, so you kind of have this, I don't know what to call it, like a voice catalog or
folder of reference files.
Folder of reference files. That sounds so official. It is, but So you have this like folder of reference files, and then do you go back like every chapter, or I guess that kind of goes into, do you record in like smaller segments, like chapter by chapter, or?
I usually try to go chapter by chapter, but often it's, especially these days, it goes by how long I can stay in the booth. So.
Oh, right. The 30-minute boiling point.
So in about like a 30-minute session and up to boiling point, maybe 45 minutes, I can get probably about 20 pages done. So you have about 8 minutes there, something like that, 9 minutes where you're kind of stopping. You stop the recording, you go back a few seconds, and then start this recording again. You'll hear about 3 seconds of your voice, and then you can jump in. It's called punching and rolling. So you're recording until you make a mistake, you stop it, you go back to where you had it right, and then it goes back 3 seconds, you can hear it, and then you start right when you're ready to go, if that makes any sense.
No, that does make total sense. Punching and rolling, didn't know it was a thing, but that makes a lot of sense. And so you just kind of are, you're like mid-sentence and you're like, and then she said, and you're like, wait, no, that sucks. And then you like kind of roll it back and then like re-say it again.
Exactly. And like one of my favorite examples is like, what are you doing? He whispered. Oh, okay, I gotta go back. Right. So
he whispered in a British accent, and you're like, oh, well, crap.
Exactly. So that's the thing that happens a lot, because of course I read the book, but I'm not going to remember from that next sentence going forward is going to be that he whispered that sentence. So I had to, I got to go back and record that again and get it perfect.
That's funny. Okay, so kind of going back to this like character reference file, how do you decide on a specific voice and tone to do for each character?
So that goes back to a little bit of like, your classic acting kind of stuff is, how does this character sound? Why would they sound that way? Kind of thing. Like we have Riker and Ryland in your book, which are two brothers, or supposed to be twin brothers, basically. So they'd have, biologically the same voice box, basically. But why does one guy sound one way and one another? So it's like Ryland's more playful. So I had him play, which is a little difficult because some lines say he has a very deep voice. Yeah. And I don't have him as deep as the other characters because he's more playful, kind of fun, moving around, kind of goofy guy. But at the same time, my voice is already just deep naturally. So those lines, I think, still make sense that it says he has a deep voice because I don't have a high voice. Whereas Riker is a little more serious. He's got tattoos. He's got these more grungy kind of guy. So he has a little more rough voice when he talks. I can't do it right now, but you have to listen to the book. That's what you have to
hear. You didn't do your vocal cord warm-ups.
That's right.
Heckling hens or whatever they were called.
I didn't do it properly. But But yeah, so basically you try to think of and slight differences, because you don't want to do way over the top crazy different voices for everybody too, because in a book that really kind of takes people out of the experience. And one of the great things about Calypso's Heart is that there's a lot of female characters, and in a lot of these books there's often just one female character. And so this is really helping me kind of build my repertoire with doing female voices and having them, you don't want to make them sound like a ridiculous characterization of a female. You want it to sound just a little breathier, a little bit more feminine. And then having variations of that has been a challenge for me in this book, because I've never had this many female characters in a book, which is great because there needs to be more female characters in books in general. But yeah, so it's a challenge. You got to make everybody sound a little bit different, and so that the listener knows who's talking at any given point in time, because you don't necessarily know all the time.
I think you've done such an excellent job. I swear, like every time I listen to a new chapter, I like have to stop it every 5 seconds and call my sister. And I'm like, Marquesa, he's done such an excellent job. And I recently just finally got to, I can't remember what chapter it was, but I heard your voice for Kina. And I just was like, whoa, I don't know if I can cuss on here. He effing nailed it. Like you nailed Kina's voice. And it's different than what I heard in my head. But then after I hear you say it, I'm like, wow, he really captures the character. And yeah. And same with Aaliyah. She's like, well, anyways, we won't go into it, but
well, yeah, with the two of them, like I'm glad you like them, because I wasn't sure if you would, but Aaliyah seems tough and a little bit more to the point, whereas Kina is a mind healer. She's I pictured her being a little more of a kind of a hippie-ish feel to her, because she's with the spirit healing and that kind of thing. And so she has a more breathy, more light voice, and she speaks a little slower, whereas Aaliyah is more to the point. She's like a doctor. She's more like a medical kind of mind. That's just the way I thought of it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You totally, like I said, you hit the nail on the head with it. And I love it so much. Okay, so back to not talking about Calypso's Heart, because I think everyone in the world will know I can talk about it too. 700 pages.
Accurate.
Anyways, accurate. Plus, book 2 may or may not be a little bit longer. But anyway, so
go good.
Good luck, Jarman. You signed up for a series of epics.
Fantastic.
Good thing you didn't have that 3x3 coffin.
3x5. Oh yeah.
3x5 is 2 feet better. Okay, so yes, I was actually really curious about this. So I think we've all heard of sports players who have like their lucky socks or like their lucky jerseys that they wear so they can win the playoffs or whatever. Do you have something like that when you go into the studio?
Oh my gosh, I don't think so. Yeah, I really don't. I used to put, when I was first starting out and it was tough to get through books, I was just not as good at it as I am now, like as far as sticking with it. I would put pictures of like kind of a vision board inside the booth. Like I printed out pictures of a nice house or material possessions I might be able to buy if I just keep working and stick with it, that kind of thing. It's funny, I actually had a picture of my current girlfriend up in their booth at one point too, because I was like, I want to impress her as well by be succeeding in this and be successful. So that was kind of a little motivational tool that I had before. But now, I mean, to be honest, it's so hot in there. I'm just thinking about, getting it done. And I often and have very little clothing on in the booth as well, because it's so hot in there. I don't want to sweat all over my clothes. So.
Oh, now we know why you call it Whisper Room. And it's all like don't romancy.
Exactly.
So everyone who's listening to Calypso's Heart, Jarman wasn't wearing any clothes in the Whisper Room.
Doesn't that make you want to buy it even more?
Oh boy. I'm going to get off this interview and all the sales are going to shoot through the roof. Thank you, Jarman.
Thank you. That's what I'm here for.
Right. That's why I hired you, just so we're clear. All right. And kind of like along the same lines of that question, but like a little bit different. So what do you never have with you or never wear? Well, we already know you don't wear anything. So, maybe just scratch that part. Or what do you always have or always not wear, I guess, in the recording booth with you? Like I would imagine one of the things that gets in your 3x5 Whisper Room is like a giant jug of water.
Oh yeah. So I know, and a lot of narrators would kill me for doing this, but I love coffee. So I'll often have a coffee and my jug of water below me. Because because there's not a lot of room in the desk. So there's a coffee in the desk, jug of water to my left. I'm ready to go. Because they claim, I think there is science behind this, that caffeine is actually bad for your voice and bad for your throat. But I had no problem. And plus, I'm supposed to sound kind of scratchy and gravelly anyway, so it works out.
Right. All the males, maybe not Deacon, but
That's
all
true.
of them, I would say, or maybe not Rhiannon, I don't know, but yes.
So yeah, that's my accoutrement, and there's that, and then not much else, because there's not a lot of space in there, as you can tell, the 3x5.
Right. Yeah. I was almost like picturing you have like, you don't just have a jug of water, you have like this like spout that you just hooked
that'd
up
be
from
amazing.
the outside.
If it was constantly chilled and just turn it on the spout, that'd be great.
Right. Yes. And I didn't know about the caffeine. Is there like any other do not do's kind of a thing?
Oh, big thing, I know this one doesn't work, is dairy. No milk or milk.
Oh, yes, I've heard that.
Yeah, your throat just gets all clogged up with that. And the weirdest thing, which is actually true, if you have a lot of lip smacking noises when you're recording or clicks in your mouth, they say to chew on some green apples, only green apples. And if you take a little bite of that or suck on it a little bit and put it back in the bowl or something, your mouth sounds totally clear. I don't know why it works or how, but it does. So there you go.
Interesting. So like crisp green apples equals crisp, awesome voice.
Exactly.
There you go.
We just did a commercial for them or something.
I think we did. Go buy your Granny Smiths today on sale. BOGO deal.
There you go.
At your local grocery store. And they will deliver, because we're in a crazy year.
Instacart. Yay.
Instacart. Hey, maybe we can get them to sponsor this.
That'd be fantastic.
All right. Oh, yes. I am curious. So speaking of like your voice and the no on the caffeine, but you do it anyway, you rebel wolf growling whisper room person over there. So how do you take care of your voice when you're narrating a book, especially long epics like Calypso's Heart?
Well, if I do a marathon day where I'm recording like a lot of material in one day, I might take the next day off. Sometimes I'm doing my own editing. I'll just take that day to do editing or to read the next book that I'm working on. Because sometimes you just have to give your day a vocal day of rest. But otherwise, doing good warm-ups. Don't scream and yell. Don't give a main character a voice that's going to kill you. Like,
oh, right.
I read a villain one time in a book, and he was like, "Hi there, how you doing?" And I was like, I didn't realize his part was so big. So like he was coming in like for monologues throughout. I was like, oh my God. And by the end of it, my throat was falling off. So make sure that character has very few lines if you're going to do that to your voice.
And then little did you know, the whole next book was actually in the villain's point of view. So
Exactly.
You had to do the whole book
terrible
in that voice.
Oh, so yeah, avoid that. That's why they have new contract negotiations for video game actors who do all those efforts and sounds in video games where they're going like that, because they're doing it for like an hour and their voice gets ruined. So now they just actually had negotiations where voice actors can't do that over like 20 minutes or something like that in one day.
Really?
So
interesting.
Yeah, protecting those voices.
Yeah, I guess that would make total sense. I mean, I feel like, I didn't do theater, but I have like some theater people in my family, and I've heard about the dairy thing, and I remember them talking about that, the voice thing. But of course, for like a whole character, that would be
just a bad idea.
A really bad idea. Let's see. Oh, yes, I am curious about this. So when you're narrating, do you get into character and like feel the emotions and feel like you get into like a certain flow, or like how does that actually work for you?
It's great, because when I'm just reading, God, I'm not sure what the author word for it is, where it's not character dialogue. All the other parts of the book that are not character dialogue, like the narrator's voice.
Either. I'm not a trained writer, so I have no idea where it's going with the non-narrated part here. Okay,
right. The narrator's voice, not a character's voice. When I'm reading that part, it's kind of easy just to fall into it without actually thinking about like a motivation or something like that. But I do the best work with the character voices when I'm actually getting into the moment. And I've just stopped much less frequently when I'm actually getting into the emotions of the scene. If I'm disconnecting with it and just kind of making the words sound like I'm connecting, then I'll have to stop a bunch of times. Like the words just don't calculate really well. So I'm always trying to feel something when the characters are speaking and make it a marked difference than just the narrator's voice, which is kind of cool in your book, though. I like the narrator has almost a personality of its own. It's kind of like really casual and funny and kind of makes jokes at the character's expenses and jokes with the audience, which not a lot of narrators would do that. The narrator voice has no personality whatsoever. So I kind of like that. It makes it actually easier to narrate, which is kind of neat.
That's interesting. You know, I've actually never thought about it like that, but I guess you're right. Yeah, maybe it's a little bit of me coming out and being like, why the hell did she just say that? Who knows?
Exactly. I love it.
That's interesting.
It's really fun.
Okay. So is Calypso's Heart the longest book you've ever narrated, or what is the longest book you've ever narrated?
I think it might be the longest or close to the longest, because the only one that was so long was I did Red Star over China, which is not available on Audible because it's only available in China. It was a history of China from the beginning of communism to now, or something like that. And
oh boy!
So no, it was not my forte. It's how I found out I'm just not meant for nonfiction.
Right.
I'm not doing nonfiction ever again. But then I also, because this was a client who did audiobooks mainly just for the Chinese and other Asian markets, and so they actually have weird licensing deals with Audible and audiobooks in general. So I actually did the entire Diary of a Wimpy Kid series. It's a pretty popular kids book series, and that was about 20 something hours worth of books, and that's only for Asian audiences as well, but in English, strangely enough. So yeah, yours is right up there with the two other ones that were kind of in that same length. But thank God it's a lot more fun than the Red Star for China.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. And book 2, like I said, may or may not be a hair longer. So, but there's a lot of, I'm biased, of course, but I feel like there's a lot of dialogue and like fun things that are going on in there.
Oh yeah, so, it's so much fun to read.
Hopefully it won't be too bad for you.
Not at all.
So, what do you love most about narrating audiobooks?
I think as far as a narrow way, as far as being a voice actor, out of all the voice acting I've done, it's just the most like theater for me. When I really love theater, because you get to become so many different characters, you get to put on so many different hats and just explore worlds. Whereas a lot of other voice acting that may be more lucrative, but it's just kind of mind numbing doing e-learning. And I did a lot of those, corporate videos like on Thursdays, never sexually harass your teammates. It was just like, or please press 1 for customer service. Like I couldn't do that stuff. Oh my
God, you've done that?
Oh yeah. Plenty of those things. But then audiobooks, you get to jump into a whole world. And so, and it's ridiculous. Like I do one commercial for like an auto parts company, and I get the same amount of money for like doing a whole book in that one little commercial. But the thing is, you have to audition like crazy for those for hours and hours on end. And once you get the job, it's not really that exciting in the first place. The only thing that's exciting about it is the money. So it's like, I'd rather be doing audiobooks all day, which is a lot of fun, as opposed to grinding on auditions and doing jobs that just don't excite me. So yeah. That probably explains it. A long rambling answer.
No. That's very interesting. And I didn't know, I mean, I guess it makes sense. So sorry, I guess this kind of goes back to your background, and maybe I should have asked this in part 1 of our interview, but so you've done, I don't even know what to call those. Those like automated voice messages and like TV commercials. And what are some other things that you've done? Now I'm just curious.
Oh yeah, like big e-learning things from a lot of product videos. That's one of the biggest markets for voiceover is product videos, and a lot of it's in company. So like I did lots for Intel, where they have a new product coming out, and they do a video to explain it to the higher ups, or to explain it to a production team. And I'm like, the new Intel chipset is 45,000 watts stronger than the last chipset. And so I'd be going off for like reading these pages upon pages of that. And lots of e-learning, like, the sexual harassment videos and stuff for work. There's training modules you take at work and that kind of thing.
Oh, yes. Very familiar.
So
with
people
those.
were probably dreading my voice at that point because they had to do a long training module.
Right, they're gonna listen to Calypso's Heart and be like, hold on, wasn't I just listening to this guy like 2 hours ago at work?
He was telling me about the new policies at work. Boring. But then I got to do a couple trailers, which were fun for movies and that kind of thing. A couple animated shorts. Those are really fun, but they're few and far between. Because if you really want to do animation or video games, you have to be living in Los Angeles, where you are, beautiful Los Angeles.
Yes, yes.
And
just south of LA. I
gotcha.
could never live in LA. Callie lives in LA.
That's good
The
of
character.
you, though. That's right. So yeah, experienced a lot of things, went around the block, and then found out where I feel most comfortable, basically.
Nice. And I'm so happy that it's paranormal romance because selfishly, I love you narrating my books. I feel like there was one more question. It's on the tip of my tongue. Oh yeah, you kind of answered this, but I guess I'm wanting to get a little more of a glimpse into this. So what does like a typical day look like for you when you're in your audiobook mode? I mean, I know you said you kind of take breaks and switch off, but what would a day in the recording studio look like for you? Is it like an all day thing or?
Yeah, pretty much. So it's wake up, have some breakfast, do those warm ups like I was talking about, get my tea or coffee ready with the water, and I get in there and I probably record for 2 hours, taking a break for about 10 minutes every half hour because I have to because of the temperature. And also I have a carbon dioxide detector in there.
Oh my gosh.
Because if I breathe too much, there's not enough oxygen that gets in that booth. It's really like airtight proof. That's why it's so quiet. You're
doing a thriller series. Like you're living a thriller and you're recording.
But literally I can't physically record longer than half an hour at a time. So I do that. I get out and I take about a 10-minute breather, get back in until it's lunchtime, and kind of wash, rinse, and repeat. Do the whole same thing after lunch until it's about 5 o'clock, and girlfriend gets home, have some dinner. There's my day.
There's your day. All right. Hey.
Well, the fun days is when I'm done with the book and I have to just read a book and prep it. And I can sit there on the couch and just my work day is actually requiring me to lay down and read a book. And so it's pretty nice.
Those are the best, I would admit.
Absolutely.
Those are the best days. And so when you are reading, like you're prepping for, when you're reading, when you're actually, what is it I'm trying to say here? When you're reading, when you're in your studio, I keep calling it a studio. If that's not the right word.
Yeah, it's my studio room, and I have a booth in the studio. So there you go.
The booth, that's what I'm looking for. So when you're in your booth and you're recording and you're not at the boiling point yet. So do you kind of like, I've heard this and I'm not sure if it's just like that was that one narrator that I heard, but do you like read ahead? Like you're speaking and then you're also kind of like looking ahead like a few words or sentences so that way you can be like, oh yeah, this comes up next.
It's funny. That's something I've had to get better at just in this whole process in order to reduce the amount of time it takes me to record the material. Because if you do practice at keeping your eyes ahead of where you're actually reading, it's weird and it's hard to perfect. I'm not there yet, actually, but it does make it so much better because then your eyes are actually giving your brain the input of what's coming up before you're about to read it. And then you can just smoothly do that and make fewer mistakes and you have to stop less frequently. That's why some of the pros out there can just like read a whole book without making a single mistake. Like Scott Brick, he's one of the really popular narrators out there. And the other thing too is when I get in the booth for the first time of the day or even after lunch, it's been a while since I've been reading, I'll just read probably the first page out loud before I start recording, just kind of get the gist of where I am in the book, what characters are, reacclimate to the character voices, and then I push record and jump right into it. So I think that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. And that makes a lot of sense. So it's kind of like a learned skill. And did you learn about that when you were in I guess in your background and your training? Was that something that they taught you how to do?
Oh, not in any kind of acting experience, but with reading a lot of voiceover books, tons of some coaching as well, and expensive coaching, and then a lot of online videos and just kind of getting little tidbits here and there from all those materials put together. So I couldn't even tell you where I remember hearing that from because I've read and watched and listened to so much. So it's a lot.
Right. Okay, well, I don't know how long we've been doing part 2, but I feel like we have a good amount of questions in here. So again, thank you so much, Jarman, for allowing us to get sort of this behind the scenes glimpse at what narrating audiobooks looks like for you. And before we go, do you have well, I guess you kind of mentioned this in part 1, but do you want to shout out any upcoming projects or things that are in the works that you'd like to share with us?
Well, there's this great book called CALYPSO'S HEART.
Right. Oh, gosh,
and it's about to come out on audiobook sometime very soon.
Sometime very soon. Yes.
Yes.
And you're also in Dangerous Liaisons, right?
Yes, Dangerous Liaison, just some community theater production, but it's a lot of fun doing that. And there's a great movie of that with John Malkovich and Glenn Close, so you should check it out. But otherwise, yeah, that's what's going on for me. And I have a couple other books coming out soon, but we're not here to talk about them. Those are competitors, so.
It's okay. I mean, I'm sure people are going to listen to your voice and then be like, okay, well, I need to read and listen to everything he has to say. So they're going to find it anyways.
There you go. Go to jarmanvoices.com or search me on Audible under Jarman Day and you'll find the rest of my repertoire.
There you go. And for those of you who are wondering, you can find me at mscsolaris.com, and Calypso's Heart is available at all the major retailers in ebook, paperback, and, like Jarman said, soon to be audiobook. So thank you for listening, and feel free to drop a comment and let us know what you think.